Session meeting of the San Marcos City Council to order. Today is Tuesday, September 5th of 2023. It is 3:02 p.m. Ms. Trevino, let's see who's here.
Yes, Mr. Prather.
Here.
Mr. Scott.
Here.
Mr. Gleason.
Here.
Mayor Houston.
Here.
Ms. Garza. Mr. Gonzalez.
Here.
Mr. Mendoza. We have a quorum present.
Mr. Mendoza will be joining us shortly. Okay, for our citizen comment period, we have 3 people, and I need to know if they're here. Is Tamia Shock here? Lilu Shock? Okay, they may be online, and we're having trouble with Zoom right this minute, so we will go first with John Craddock. And I will read the rules. City Council welcomes speakers at work sessions and regular meetings. If you wish to speak during the citizen comment period of work session, you will sign up online or in person at the city clerk's office. Either way, the deadline is noon the day of the meeting. You may speak once during citizen comment time period and may not yield your time to others. You have 3 minutes when you state your name. A timer will be displayed on the screen at some point. And at the end of your time, there will be a bell go off that's automatic and let you know your time is up. Mayor and council will endeavor to ensure that meetings are conducted in a courteous manner and in an atmosphere free of defamation, intimidation, personal insults, profanity, or threats of violence. Mr. Craddock, 3 minutes are yours. And
Thank you, Mayor.
I think we're going to get the timer up. Okay, thank you.
Oh,
Okay, go ahead.
Good afternoon. I'm John Craddock, President of the San Marcos Greenbelt Alliance, SMGA. SMGA's mission is to create and conserve an interconnected system of parks and natural areas for our community and future generations. SMGA has supported the city's acquisition of conservation lands since SMGA was formed 25 years ago. SMGA helps the city manage the natural areas through trail design, construction, and maintenance, restoration of native plant communities, and enhancement of the watersheds. A few comments about this plan that y'all will be reviewing. SMGA's committee that reviewed the plan included Todd Durkis, Melanie Howard, Aspen Navarro, Diane Phelan, Eric Weeks, Paul Murray, and Mark Taylor. SMGA has been working with the city staff for about 5 years to get this plan done. SMGA supports the plan's emphasis on protection of the water quality and the water quantity as primary purposes of the natural areas. Additional resources will be needed to implement this plan. SMGA will continue to leverage city resources with our volunteer work, which has exceeded over 2,000 hours a year. SMGA supports the expansion of funding sources for the natural areas. Thanks to the city staff and the consultant for getting this draft plan prepared. SMGA supports this plan, and we hope that the council will also. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Trevino, are we
I'm just logging in, Mayor.
okay? So what we will do is we will go ahead and do the presentation, and then we will allow citizen comment after the presentation. Ms. Reyes?
Mayor, do you want me to read the captions?
Oh, yeah, be good for everybody to know what we're talking about. Thank you.
Yes, receive a staff presentation regarding the San Marcos Natural Area Land Management Plan and provide direction to the city manager.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. You will be receiving a presentation regarding the Natural Areas Land Management Plan.
The term natural areas means undeveloped that's preserved and managed primarily specific along
Are you on Zoom? Okay. Go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
The term natural area in this plan means a tract of undeveloped land.
We need this microphone.
So, is that better? Okay, awesome. Let me start over. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. This afternoon, you will be receiving a presentation regarding the Natural Areas Land Management Plan. The term natural area in this plan means a tract of undeveloped land that is preserved and managed primarily for its ecological value. The ecological value includes protection of water quality and quantity, flood mitigation, and biologic and geologic features, as it also includes scenic, archaeological, and cultural features. The City of San Marcos Parks and Recreation Department manages over 2,100 acres of natural areas that make up most of our park acreage. The primary purpose of the San Marcos natural areas are natural resource preservation and protection in the Edwards Aquifer and the San Marcos River, and flood mitigation in the watersheds of the San Marcos and Blanco rivers. A secondary purpose of the natural areas is for passive recreational opportunities to promote human physical, mental health, and to foster knowledge and awareness of the importance of proper land conservation. The City of San Marcos began to acquire conservation land in the 1990s. Since then, lands have been acquired through a variety of ways, including gifts from property owners, general fund purchases, grant-funded acquisitions, and dedications through development agreements. Adoption of the plan is scheduled for consideration at your next meeting, September 19th, 2023. If adopted, this plan will assist us with natural area land management by providing natural resource preservation and management and enhancement to access, safety, and connectivity. I want to thank all of staff and the stakeholders who have worked diligently and collaboratively to develop this plan, as Mr. Craddock mentioned during opening comments. I'm now going to go ahead and turn it over to Director of Parks and Recreation, Jamie Lee Case, to provide you with the presentation. Thank you.
When I unmute it. Okay, I think we're good. All right. Thank you, Ms. Reyes. Mayor and Council, Jamie Lee Case, Director of Parks and Recreation. Before I get started, I wanted to extend a very big thank you to our consultant, Half and Associates. This afternoon, I have Miss Nathalie Booth here representing Half. It was a 3-person team along with Matt Buchin and Whitney Linder as well. Then, of course, our stakeholders, the San Marcos Greenbelt Alliance, the San Marcos River Foundation, the Great Springs Project, CONA, the San Marcos Council of Neighborhood Associations, the Emerald Crown Trail Work Group, and then I would be remiss if I did not mention our city emergency personnel, fire, emergency management, and our city marshal staff as well. So a huge thank you to them for helping us get here. This afternoon, we're going to go over, this is just a brief overview, we're going to go over the purpose, our process and framework of the plan, our goals, the implementation, and then the next steps. Next slide, please. Okay. Looks like y'all can see it, but I can't see it up there. That's okay. So the purpose of this plan is identified objective within, this was an identified objective within our 2019 Parks and Open Space Master Plan. Currently, as Ms. Reyes mentioned, we have 17 natural areas totaling 2149, so 2,149 acres, more or less, of our current park system. Of those acres, about 1,685 fall within the Edwards Aquifer Recharge, Contributing, or Transition Zone. So that is just another reason why our conservation efforts are so very important. Next slide, please. Okay, awesome. So the purpose of this plan, the terms green space and natural areas are used somewhat synonymously within the city's 2019 Parks and Recreation and Open Space Master Plan. But the term natural area is land that is not only developed, but is actively managed to restore and enhance the land's native ecosystems. This plan serves as a technical guide to aid in the management of our current and future areas. Next slide, please. So how we got here, this is the process. We did kick this off in March of 2022. I mentioned a list of our stakeholders. So we did meet in groups and individually with all of those stakeholders that I did mention. And then we held a public open house. That open house was held on Saturday, May 14th, 2022. There was no formal presentation, but was come and go for the public, and we were there all day at the Activity Center. We were able to ask individuals to provide feedback on several topics which had been identified as key issues during our stakeholder meetings. Next slide, please. It was through that process that we developed our framework of the plan. The framework is made up of an introduction, planning purpose, the benefits, and the statements of goals, then the environmental overview, standards and management recommendations, and lastly, implementation. Next slide. And one more, please. Thank you. Listed on the screen for you is the vision statement, which was generated to represent the community input received during the planning effort. The primary focus of the Natural Areas Land Management Plan is to protect the natural environment of the areas. And the plan highlights the community's desire that the natural areas be protected first and foremost. The vision statement is a statement of the desired long-term outcome for the San Marcos natural areas rather than a statement of existing conditions. Next slide, please. We'll move on to plan goals next. In the plan, management objectives have been developed and specifically for each natural area to achieve these goals. Fire safety has been at the forefront of everyone's minds recently, given our current conditions. This plan provides us with a guide to formally proceed with fire mitigation plans as part of our land management. Next slide, please. Next, we'll talk about implementation. It is through action and decision-making, coordination, and monitoring that plans come to fruition. Through this land management plan this land management plan functions as a technical document for city staff, the following steps should be taken. So we have listed in the implementation plan action, which these initiatives may include undertaking new projects, expanding upon existing programs, or coordinating a study. The policy portion is related to official procedures or policy decisions as would come to City Council. Partnerships are another component of the implementation plan. These initiatives will include 2 or more entities working closely together to champion that initiative of the plan. Next slide, please. The assigned time frame identified within the implementation plan is a series of goals, so between 0 to 2 years. Those next steps should be initiated within the next 1 to 2 years through completion, although completion may extend across a larger time frame. These are top priorities for implementation. The next would be 3 to 5 years, and those may be considered ongoing as they may represent a policy that may be initiated within 3 to 5 years. Or operational need. Ongoing. These next steps may also be ongoing, where they represent a policy or practice that should be immediately and occur on an annual or scheduled basis. Next slide, please. I printed out the plan for you. While this is a little screenshot of what the implementation schedule is in the plan, it is on page 117 of the plan, so do you want to see it a little bit closer up for yourselves there? So on the plan, there is listed involved departments, or as I mentioned, other stakeholder groups. So Parks and Recreation, Fire Department, Police Department, General as a city of San Marcos. Then there's volunteer groups such as SMGA or even the San Marcos River Foundation or the Great Springs Project. Then we have our Planning and Development Services Department. We have our San Marcos Utilities or our Stormwater Division. Next slide, please. Continuing on with implementation, funding for improvements to maintenance and management of the natural areas has primarily involved the general fund appropriated to the Parks and Recreation Department. Staff also seeks grants for development of trails or forgivable loans for acquisition, such as through the Texas Water Development Board, for example. We also you could consider creating event fees to generate additional revenue. Trail races are becoming more popular. We currently do host one annually, which has been hosted for a while, which is the Purgatory Trail Run. And this upcoming October, we'll also host the Tejas Trail Run, which is benefiting the Great Springs Project. Next slide, please. The city's 2019 Parks, Recreation, and Open Space plan includes a recommendation to add a water quality land manager for the natural areas. To assist in carrying out the next steps for implementing this plan, the city may wish to consider funding this position within the next 3 to 5 years if capacity allows. Next slide, please. On August 24th, the Parks and Recreation Board did adopt a recommendation resolution, which is also included in your packet, supporting the adoption of this plan by City Council. On September 19th, City Council will formally have this on your agenda to consider for formal adoption. Next slide, please. Next slide is just questions. I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Council, questions, comments, thoughts? While y'all are thinking, I would like to thank everyone on about 3 slides back who have been involved in this. You, your staff, other city staff. Thank you for including safety. I know that y'all would do that, but I just wanted to point out that that is there. And thank you, loads and loads, to the San Marcos Greenbelt Alliance, who has put in so many volunteer hours in building the trails and making sure that the land that we intend to be accessible to the public is accessible to the public. So many, many thanks all around.
And I want to reiterate what the mayor has stated. As someone who spends a lot of time in Purgatory, upper and lower, I cannot thank the volunteers enough for the work they do out there. We would not have it, and it would not be utilized the way it is if it wasn't for the volunteers. Safety is utmost concern right now. I'm glad to see this is a full scale approach to what we really are going to use, potentially use these green spaces for. And just thank again all the volunteers and partners and everybody that came together to try to put all this together. So thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to echo those, someone that uses those trails, the family, and it provides a unique San Marcos experience. And what makes San Marcos different than your shirts or Round Rock is our green spaces, our trails, our beautiful natural areas. I love how it was talking about collaborating with the Great Springs Project. I think it's a great thing. The signage, increasing the quality of signage to the parks because it shows the importance of that park to a community. Very impressed with this plan. Yes, and the fact that fire safety, public safety is a huge concern, especially now. But thank you to the San Marcos Greenbelt Alliance. Every time, personally, when I'm out there, I can just see y'all's improvements to our beautiful natural areas. So thank you.
And I'm going to thank everybody in the past who had the foresight to acquire
Yes.
all of this green space, because this has been a multi-year journey, 30 years,
Yeah.
pretty
Started with
sure
a
of,
gift.
maybe more. So anyway, just thanks to all those people in the past who have helped get us to this point. Because you're right, this does set us apart from many, many other communities.
Well, the only other thing I'll add too is to the citizens of San Marcos, go out and enjoy these green spaces. I don't think they realize the assets that the foresight of the former leaders and hopefully future leaders will see how important this is to the community, and what a great resource it is. It is such an amazing experience to be out there, get right off Ranch Road 12, and you are in some very beautiful, rugged country. And it's a beautiful, beautiful asset. So all the citizens, get out there and enjoy it.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Well, I was going to say some of the stuff that's already been said, but in another note, you said you get some grant funding and some from the general fund. How often do you get those grant funding, and what percentage is it from the general fund, from the grants?
Sure. It depends on the specific project. So most recently, we were awarded a grant through TxDOT for an ADA accessible trail that was completed at the end of 2019. Since then, we have not had a project canned enough to put forth. We were working on one, but the grant calendar wasn't going to align with the project that we needed to get started and when they would actually award. So we were able to, thankfully, use ARPA funding for that project specifically. So still essentially, not general funded projects. It depends on the grant. Some grants, they require 10% of a contribution. And so some may be zero. It really just depends upon the grant that we're fortunate enough to find.
With the grant funding, are we allowed to use that to purchase real estate as well for green space?
Sure, we have used a forgivable loan through the Texas Water Development Board to purchase the Milliken Tract most recently. When was that, 2018, 2017, somewhere around in there? So we have utilized, that method in which to acquire water quality land specifically. And we are always kind of looking, we did consider another one which we had talked about. We decided to kind of hold off on it, but, those are definitely options that we have available to us.
Well, thank you very much, and I also want to thank all the players that were involved and still are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Scott?
I'm not going to repeat what everybody already just said, but are there things that the public should know that would help with the whole process, where they can volunteer? Maybe things that are going on the trails that maybe people should be aware of?
Sure. Say something, see something, say something is always first and foremost. If it's a non-emergency, they can call non-emergency PD. Obviously, volunteer opportunities through the San Marcos Greenbelt Alliance. Then if they want to, contribute to anything with a watershed or tributary cleanup, then they can contact our Community Enhancement Department for that specifically. But our biggest thing right now is preventing fires. So as folks are coming, into our community, they may think that this is may see a natural area as, hey, I'm still out in the country, and decide to set up a little fire. And we have been finding fire rings, and still in Spring Lake is our most popular one. And we're doing everything we can to combat it through education and signage and all the things. But, signs only keep honest people honest. And so, education and hopefully appealing to people's better nature will be a great help. But, we just can't be everywhere all at once.
Yeah, because these trails are not monitored. We're expecting everyone to be on their own best behavior. And what is the old saying? Take only pictures, leave only footprints?
Essentially.
Something like that?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, all right. Well, is there anything else?
No.
If not, we will just give one big last thank you to everyone involved. And Ms. Reyes, are we ready to close this one out? And we will see this again for approval on our agenda in 2 weeks.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Ms. Trevino advises me that the two folks who had signed up for citizen comment, and we were having Zoom issues, were not, they really intended to sign up for 6 o'clock?
Yes.
Okay, so we don't have that. Council, we are now ready for our executive session. However, I'm going to ask, are y'all good if we do question and answer before we go into our executive session? Did we have anyone sign up for that? Okay.
It's the same two ladies, but it was
Okay,
meant for.
so, we don't have that today, so I will, have Ms. Trevino read item 2 and then look for a motion.
Okay. The city council will convene an executive session pursuant to the following section of chapter 551 of Texas Government Code, section 551.072, real property, to deliberate the sale, lease, or value of city property located on 611 West Martin Luther King Drive.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion from Mr. Scott, second from Mr. Prather. Ms. Trevino?
Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Mayor Houston?
Aye.
Ms. Garza? Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez? Mr. Mendoza? And Mr. Prather?
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes 5-0 with 2 absent.
All righty. Council, I will give you a couple of minutes for a bio break, and then we will meet in the large conference room. Start the meeting, and we were going to do question and answer with press and public earlier. We didn't have anyone, so now we are ready for adjournment. I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
I'll give that one to Mr. Gleason with a second to Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Vino, let's see who would like to adjourn.
Okay, Mr. Gleason?
Aye.
Mayor Houston?
Aye.
Ms. Garza? Mr. Gonzalez? Mr. Mendoza? Mr. Prather? Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0 with 2 absent.
And we will adjourn at 4:01 PM. We'll see you back at 5:55.